Now let's focus on the edge. Alright, so I got a new pencil here. I got to dull it slightly. So the edge is where it all like really kind of comes together. And you know, you don't want to draw in the angles. You want to think about the angles. So let me just kind of come on down. So what I'm going to do in this like little segment now is I'm going to focus a little bit more on the edge, wrapping some line in, and I'm going to try to get some texture as well. And I on this DVD, I really don't want to work on this simple fabric longer than 25 minutes because I don't want this to take away from like the more complicated stuff. But it's still important. It's still like basic drapery. So you can see I did my first kind of loop around. And, you know, there's the foreground of her skirt and there's the background of her skirt. So everything that I'm doing, I got to think about now the whole cylinder thing. So I'm trying to get this thing to be round and a little bit more chiseled. So I'm going to chisel this edge and pull like more of a crisper line up. So now that just comes like into the foreground. And, you know, you've got now a little bit of a foreground, a little bit of a background. And let me just keep going now with this. So you want a sharp pencil, but you still got to work that pencil in the beginning so it's not too sharp. And, you know, I'm borderline too sharp here, so I'm just going to chisel up, establish that cylinder edge. And this is a real hard edge. This cylinder is coming a little bit into the foreground by like a couple of inches to this. This is like 2 inches back. And so let's just kind of roll up now with this line. Make a hard edge. Hard edges come forward. Soft edges go back. And let's do this edge now. Look at the negative space in between. The negative space is the shadow shape. I'm using negative space. And, you know, basically if we look at the photo, I'm looking at that little white fabric in between that green fabric and her leg, and that's the negative space, and that's what I lost a little bit. So now I got to just try to get that, and that will be very cool if I can do that. So it'll look more like the fabric and not some like thing that I'm just doing out of my imagination. So the hem is going to be a little bit darker because the fabric is doubled up. So I got to take that into consideration. And that's a texture thing. So now there's an angle here. And excuse my hand, I'm just trying to make sure my head doesn't get into the camera. Yeah, so texture thing on the edge. Really pay attention to all like little ins and outs. So I can fold up a little bit. I can see there's like a little S curve that comes down and around. This is a dark halftone. Yeah, this is a dark halftone right over here. So I'm going to make that cylinder. This is like a real slow turning cylinder. I'm not going to go around it, but I think you know what I'm talking about. It's not like a sharp edge. So I'm just going to put that dark halftone in. Texture. It's not like continuous all the way up. It kind of has like those little folds. Gotta be careful I don't get into black here because there's no black up top. Her shirt is black. The shadow in her shirt is black. This is a dark, but not a black. And I just call this a dark halftone. So I'm just doing that. Gotta make sure I don't press down too hard on this pencil. And now I'm gonna come back here and separate these cylinders slash folds of the skirt. And pay attention to this like little negative space over here. And trying to be organic. This is like really round. This is like a little kind of fold of the fabric in there. I'm going to go like a little bit darker, match that value, and I'm looking, trying to keep my negative space correct. I'm really over to the left. I always say this on my DVDs, but every time I do a DVD, I cannot get over how far to the left I am from the photo. And when I'm doing this at home, and I am at home, but when I'm doing it on my own without the camera, I'm like right, my nose is like right against this picture and my drawing. So this is could be frustrating, but you know, that's just the way that it goes for me. So let's just keep going. Under plane butt, center butt right over here, side plane. So now that's my reflected light. So I got to keep that. And let's just kind of come on in with a convex little gradation. I don't want to end this so abruptly, like this is this side plane of one of her glutes. This gets a little skinnier. So now I'm going to like try to be a little bit more deliberate and show some pencil strokes because that's going to be the texture of her skirt. And this is really black. And this turns a little bit. This is a turn-in plane. So it's going to be a little bit darker. Let's just pay attention to how this rolls in. And I'm going to just really, I'm leaning back from it slightly. Keep going here. So now it's all texture. Okay, I could do, wow, I can do so much work on the bottom here. And I'm just going to try to speed this, draw this for you. One of the later drawings that we're going to do in this DVD is extremely complicated. It's a real complicated dress that I photographed on someone, and this is just so much more simple. So I'm going to get into all the complicated, but I'm just showing you, you know, cylinders, shadow shapes, modeling factors, pencil stroke, convex line. All of those things combined together, the layered approach to drawing, if you do it the right way and you match values, it should look like the fabric. Okay. So then you also think about edges, and hard edges come forward. So I'm going to just try to make this come forward a little bit. Probably not going to match the values completely on this fabric. It's going to be impossible for me to do that, but I'm going to try to get as close as I can in this 25 to matching, because matching values is how you get things to look like what you're drawing. If you're trying to go the semi-realistic route, you know, if this was like a drawing for an animation, that's a different thing. You know, if this is a drawing for a comic book, that's a different thing. But this is a drawing that's going to try to get close to the photo for teaching purposes, and then, you know, you manipulate and you adapt to what I teach to what you do for, you know, whatever type of work that you're aspiring to do, whether it be comic book art or, you know, animation type drawings or illustration. Okay, so I'm just still matching values. Now I'm going to lean back a little bit. Let's add some texture down here. So I'm just coming on in. I'm going to fold up. So some of these lines I'm setting you up for the texture, because all of my initial, let's just call them pencil strokes and not brush strokes, are all going vertical. So now I'm going to come in and I'm going to wrap some choice folds, creases in the fabric, a little bit against the grain. Should have a sharp pencil for this, which, excuse me, I'm going to grab one right now. And yeah, just let's roll in some texture lines in here. This is a little dark for my liking right over here, but I'm just going to leave it. So I'm going to actually go against the grain. I hate when that happens. You can do this with your eraser too, actually. You can do some like light stuff, but I'm not going to go eraser just yet. Okay, cool. Okay, so should kill this light a little bit so I really have that shadow. And where else? I'm not seeing too much going on. I'm going to go with a horizontal pencil stroke right now. Pushing a little bit of these. Turn in plane. And this like little kind of hem of the fabric is going to be like a little bit darker on the edge. And that's just a texture thing that gives it like a little diversity. All those little nitpicky details totally count. And I'm going to go with a horizontal now. I'm just scribbling, and it's just adding texture, okay? I think that's like a cool thing, because this wrap is very textury. You know, I know that she brought it to the photo shoot and it was in her bag, and when it was in her bag it got kind of folded up and wrinkled a little bit, and all those wrinkles are cool to draw if you do them the right way and you don't overdo them. Okay, so now I'm just scribbling a little bit. I'm going to just chisel too. Now, I can spend a day on this skirt, but I think it's pretty good for like a 20. Okay, so we're probably going to stop soon, and then I'm going to come back and just work a little bit on her shirt. And I'm going to probably come back and do a little minutia on the skirt. Just because I know when I step back there's going to be some areas that I've missed. Actually, let's do them right now. So there's this back hem, and it's really black on the photo, or dark, I shouldn't say black, but I'm not going to make it this is where I'm going to manipulate the values. I'm going to make the foreground edge a little bit darker so it comes into the front, into the foreground. And I'm going to make my background hem of the skirt. By hem, I mean it's just like the end of the fabric where they kind of sew it up so it doesn't get like all frayed. I'm going to just make that like a little bit lighter, and I can just try to chisel this a little bit more. Yeah, that's not bad. And this, I'm going to just manipulate some values. You don't want to match completely because then you're just totally copying. You got to know like when to match and when to manipulate. Okay, so I'm going to stop and we're going to come back. I'm just going to work on this for a little bit.